Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Non Sequitur Nerds. Tonight, get your jogging shoes because we're going to be talking open world games. As always, though, I'm Tim, joined by my buddy Ian. How's it going, buddy?
Hey, we're doing really well, capping off the end of another kind of hectic week. But things are going pretty good here. As Tim said, we're getting ready to talk open world games, which there's been a lot of news around open world games recently. A lot of big announcements. So let's go ahead and kind of jump right into it. So obviously the big one, the newest announcement, the big one is a new game from EA. It's a partnership actually with EA and Koei Tecmo. Uh, it's a very Monster Hunter-esque game called Wild Hearts. So it is kind of a spiritual sequel to the Tokuden series of games that Koei Tecmo did back in the 90s.
I'd say
Early 2000s.
been a while for Tokuden,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, because they were originally released on the Vita and the and older PlayStation consoles. So weren't exactly well known, but apparently fairly well loved for them. But yeah, so this is a new kind of game that falls in that line of thought. Kind of very Monster Hunter-esque. You run around, you fight these giant kaiju things, which I think they call kimonos.
That I'm not
Which is
sure.
a little weird. But it's definitely got a very Japanese flair to it. The architecture, they even, if you watch the trailer, they even talk about, in the land of the East. So yeah, it's definitely got a flair for the Japanese. But it's an interesting concept because it seems to also take a little bit of a cue from Fortnite. In that it incorporates building as a component of this. You have this like mystic puzzle box or whatever it is, and you can use it to build various things. Like in the trailer, they feature these little towers that you could like climb up on and then jump to the kaiju. You build a ballista to spear the kaiju and kind of hold them down with a kimono. Sorry. Then there's one where like you create this like little gyrocopter thing that you can like fly around with. So it seems like it's ever changing. Like you can modify these things and switch it up throughout, and it seems like it's very central to you being able to fight these giant monsters.
Interesting.
Yeah, so it's interesting, definitely, and again, kind of leads into this conversation about all of these massive open world games, especially as of late. And I don't know what your feelings are necessarily on open world games, but I actually really like them because it gives me an opportunity. It gives me choice.
Yes, I mean you're not boxed into being inside a building or confined to one map or like how quote unquote open world games were back in like PS2 era where it's open world, but like when you go into like the cities, it's like okay, well you get like this block and then you have to load into another area, and then okay, well, you're going to get the first 3 floors of this building, and then it's going to have to load. Like Final Fantasy VII, as an example, had a again quote unquote open world map when you were on the overworld,
Right.
but there wasn't really much to do there. It literally was just a means of making your character get from point A to point B with random battles in the middle of it. There wasn't anything to do in the open world. Now, even games like, and this is one that I am interested in, but cautious. Sonic Frontiers is an open world Sonic game, which the last time we got something even remotely close to that was like the Sonic Adventure games, which were phenomenal. But that kind of had the same thing where you had like part of the city, but then if you wanted to go to any of the zones, it loaded into that. It wasn't a true open world. Sonic Frontiers appears from what they're saying is a true open world Sonic game. Um, it looks interesting, but like everything they show off on it, I go, wow, that's neat. But then I see like 40 things where I'm like, oh, but all of those things could ruin this, though. I mean,
yeah, a truly good open world game is very difficult to do because it's a balancing act, right? You have to balance being able to continuously tell your story while also giving people the choice and freedom, or the freedom of choice, and the ability to kind of go out and do things. I mean,
right.
we've had open world games really for quite a long time. I mean, even if we look back at like Dot Hack,
Right.
it wasn't quite true open world like we think about today, but it did have an overworld. You could kind of go out and explore a little bit and see again those like the areas that you could you could go to. You were still bounded and boxed in a bit, but it wasn't. It did give you a little bit of freedom. And then
Right.
you know, obviously, there's games like the Fallout franchise.
Yep,
You know,
which is a
Fallout,
huge open world.
right? Fallout, Skyrim, Morrowind, all of those games really give you the freedom of choice. Like, especially if you think about like Skyrim, there's a story, right? You start off in the one fort, and then basically the moment that you leave that fort, you don't have to do anything that the story says.
Yeah.
You can. I mean, people have spent thousands of hours
Oh my god, yes.
doing nothing.
Yeah.
Like nothing. I say nothing glibly, but nothing when it comes to advancing the main story.
Right, absolutely. I know I'm guilty of that in Skyrim.
Oh, sure, sure. And also modding the crap out of the game, but
Well, yes, that
that's
too.
I mean, the true essence of an open world game is you have that. You have this freedom of choice. You
Yep.
can go up and do anything, and you're not necessarily hampered or restricted by the story. Now, again, there are still some things out there, like if you look back at Fallout 3, you couldn't really go to Raven Rock or, you know, those kind of places unless you advance the story to be able to get there. But for the
Right.
most part, the overworld was open to you.
Well, I mean, like, kind of the opposite of that, Breath of the Wild on Switch. That
Mhm.
one, literally from the moment you can go into the overworld, you can go straight to Hyrule Castle and try to fight Ganon literally right off the bat. You're
Right, and
gonna
it's
have a bad time, but you can do
unless
it.
you're really good. It's actually become kind of a running joke. Actually, it's not a joke, but it's a challenge by speedrunners. Literally, is how quickly can I start the game and go defeat the final boss?
Yeah.
And people have done it
Yeah.
in incredible amounts of time. Like
Which
it's
is
stupid how
insane.
quickly.
But I mean, that's kind of the flip side of these open world games, though, is you can do that in some of them. But the amount of stuff that you will have missed out on is just exponentially more than what you're
Mhm.
experiencing going from start straight to the final boss. I mean, like with
Right.
Zelda, I mean, like obviously there's a story there. There's all the nods to like Ocarina of Time that are in that game. Well, I mean, and even some of the other Zelda games. There's like the Korok hunting. There's just all this extra, even outside of the story stuff that you're just
I
gonna
mean,
miss out on. You know?
right. And speaking of, you know, the Breath of the Wild is they've obviously announced recently that they finally we've been
Officially.
waiting for information on this. I mean, we've known it's been in the works.
Yeah.
We've just had pretty much no info except for a trailer. I think maybe at last year's E3
It was a year
was
or two ago. Yeah.
yeah, maybe when they revealed it, just kind of a very small. I mean, it was like a minute and a half trailer, but
And it literally showed nothing other than like Zelda walking through a cave.
right. Well, now we finally have, you know, kind of pseudo gameplay. We've got some information. We've got a title.
Yeah.
We've got a title, Tears of the Kingdom.
Which
So,
is interesting. They didn't just call it Breath of the Wild 2 because they said this is a sequel to Breath of the Wild. Um, so it's a lot of people are already theorizing. Well, okay, what does that title mean?
yeah,
Like you think Tears of the Kingdom, something is sad. Something bad is happening to the kingdom again. But I mean, I'm sorry, but if you choose to keep living in Hyrule with all the shit that's gone on there, you know what? Just move. Just go somewhere else because
yeah,
it's going to be a bad time living in Hyrule.
yeah. Well, I mean, admittedly, like Hyrule was prosperous for 1,000 years or something
I was
like
gonna say,
that.
yeah, like it's like every in between every Ganon. So if you're lucky to live in that time period, it's a great place to live.
Right, right. And
The second somebody names their kid Link, though, you move. You move the hell out of town.
right. Well, I mean, yeah, and you can't really go by Zelda because literally every royal princess is named Zelda,
Yeah, exactly.
or at least the firstborn one is always named Zelda.
Yep.
But they kind of, I don't know. They never really talk about like Zelda ever having like siblings, so maybe they
Yeah.
just like maybe as soon as a girl is born, they're just like, nope, we're done.
That's a Zelda. We're done.
Yep.
So Zelda's
Yeah.
mom would be Zelda, whose mother is
Yeah,
Zelda.
well, it depends on how the royal line goes, right? So if
That's
like
true.
you know, unless they practice incest, which I hope that they would not.
This isn't Game of Thrones, Ian.
Correct. Yeah, she's not named, you know, Zelda Targaryen.
Zelda Targaryen. I'm sure there's fan art of Zelda Targaryen somewhere. I'm not looking it up. Not gonna.
care. Anyway, but yes, we finally have some information. I'm really excited about it because Breath of the Wild is one of my all-time favorite games. It's
Yes,
so
it is
fun,
really good.
so amazing. I've spent hundreds of hours just exploring the overworld and
Yes.
collecting stuff and just having fun in that game.
See,
But
and that's kind of the big draw of those open world games is the amount of time you can put into it. I mean, you spend 60 or these days $70 for a game. If it's something you're going to beat in 8 hours, you're talking just shy of $10 an hour that you paid for this entertainment. Versus like with an open world game, you spent 100 hours in that game. You more than got your money's worth out. Just from I mean, not even just the time, but the enjoyment you got out.
Oh, sure. I mean, if you spend $70 on a game and you spend 140 hours in that game, you have effectively spent 50 cents an hour.
Yeah.
To play that for that kind of entertainment. You can't even get that in Amsterdam. So, good investment, I would say.
I mean, there you go. There you go. 50 cents an hour for some happy time. All right.
Yeah, if I'm gonna spend $70 to play with myself, I might as well enjoy it.
Well, I mean, there you go. There you go. I mean, some people spend more than that to play with themselves. Wow.
Speaking of, jumping up to another open world game, the Grand Theft Auto series.
Okay, yeah, okay, good segue. I like that. Which I mean was in the news lately.
Yes.
GTA 6, early like prototype beta gameplay of it got leaked.
Mm-hmm.
Not by Rockstar's choice either.
Right.
It was very much the FBI last I knew was actually looking into this hack. It looked good.
As much as and this is going to be kind of one of our tangential non sequitur type things. As much as I enjoyed the GTA franchise, as much as I enjoyed the Red Dead franchise, Rockstar really is one of those developers that's petty enough that they would go after this kind of thing.
Right.
Like they're notorious for just being dicks about a lot of stuff.
Right.
Like they were even back in GTA 3 days, they were always in the news for being the company that demanded crunch time and just had ridiculous crunch time,
right,
and mistreated their employees, and were just generally awful when it came down to that kind of stuff. So it doesn't shock me that they would try to pursue this from that perspective. But
right. I mean, it is what I mean. At the end of the day, like they were making is a little gung ho, yes, but at the end of the day, from a business standpoint, they were a business that was making a product that was not ready to be shown to the market yet. Because I know a lot of people have said that the main characters look generic, the gameplay looks generic. It's pretty, but looks generic. And I mean, I understand it's beta footage, which means that it is an unfinished product. But a lot of people
alpha footage. I mean, it's probably. I mean, it's with how basic it was. It's probably like even pre-alpha. Like an alpha is something that you're okay to show people and slap a whole bunch of labels on it that says this is not the final product.
Yeah, but unfortunately, with this being a leak, they didn't get that chance to say, this is not final gameplay. So a lot of people are looking at it now, going, "Wow, that looks rough. That looks bad." And like I'll admit, the main characters that have gotten shown off, they do look super generic. But again, we don't know anything about those characters. They may not even be the final characters. They may literally just be placeholder character models. It's a model of some other random NPC in the game. Game companies will do that while they're designing their main characters or designing whatever cast member. They'll put just placeholder, whatever. Or heck, some games don't even bother putting a character model. They just put like a cube that floats there as a placeholder to know, all right, well, when we finish the character model, place it there, animate it there, and it's just to show you where it will be in a scene.
And low res renders like that are very, like you said, are very common in these types of games during development cycles, because you don't want to spend a whole lot of effort designing in a character if it's not going to work. Now, sometimes in these cases they use an animated, a posable character so that they can act out scenes.
Yep.
Excuse me. They can kind of see how the thing will interact with the environment. In the case of something like a Sonic game, where you're not like punching things, you're not stealing cars,
right?
Having like a cube makes a little sense, because all you needed to do is just do loop-de-loops and bounce off of things
and go really fast.
Right.
Gotta go
Gotta go
faster.
fast.
Exactly. But no,
But
it's Grand Theft Auto is one of those iconic open world. Um, I mean, even from its like humble beginnings of a literal top-down game, it was still admittedly small, but was technically an open world game.
right.
Once we got into GTA 3 and beyond, it became a full 3D, full open world. And the most recent released one, GTA 5,
Which
or
version? Because they've been much like Skyrim, they've been
yeah.
releasing the same game over and over for the last 10 years.
Oh, well, I was gonna say, or as back in my GameStop days, as customers would call it, you got that GTA V5? I'm not even kidding. They would call it GTA V5 because Roman numerals are hard. You could tell what people played Final Fantasies and which ones didn't, just
You
based
got
on how
that
they would
Final
name the
Fantasy
game.
VII.
You got that Final Fantasy V remake, but no, GTA has been a very iconic series. Obviously has pushed the envelope on what can be allowed in games, what you can get away with in games, but has, while maintaining a sense of humor, has also maintained a heavy sense of realism. Um,
Mm-hmm.
versus its bastard stepbrother, Saints Row, which is another open world game which does not take itself seriously at all, but knows that it's not taking itself seriously. Like GTA as the series has gone on has gotten more and more serious, more and more of a, I don't want to necessarily say drama, but more of
Mm-hmm.
a mature in the sense of being grown up tone. Saints Row has just gone downhill and has started to hire 13-year-olds to write their script. But I don't mean that in a bad way. While they are very similar, like crime-based open world games, they each have their own merits. But they each have their own thing that makes them special. But each one has something that does better than the other.
Right.
But neither game, in my opinion anyway, is any less valid than the other. Now, I mean, obviously GTA far exceeds the sales of any of the Saints Row games, but the Saints Row games are still really fun
Yep.
in a different way.
Yep. Yeah, and if you look out there, I mean, there's obviously a ton of other potential options for open world games. I mean, if you even look at it, Halo, the most recent Halo game, Halo Infinite, while it is a sequential, game, it has there are certain areas that you can't unlock unless you progress the story.
Mhm.
It's still very much open world. Like as
Yeah.
soon as you kind of finish the intro area, you can go and explore. Like,
Which for me, having played Halo since Halo 1, took a bit of time to wrap my brain around that it's not just, I have to go that way. That's where the
yeah,
end of the level is. This is just, where do you want to go next? Which is
yeah.
completely different than any other Halo.
Yeah, but it was fun. Like
It
I
was.
enjoyed it. I think if I had to offer any kind of criticism, though, is like once you unlock everything and kind of finish exploring, there's not much else to do. Like
Okay.
you're just kind of running around trying to find collectibles. But the other thing is like the maps are kind of sparse for like enemies. So like it can you can run around for quite a while and just not run into anybody for a
I have
while.
noticed that as well.
So it does lose a bit of its immersion in that you're like not constantly fighting like you were in the Halo game, the other Halo games. But at the same time, you're in an open world, and these are military units, so there's not going to just be thousands of enemies covering every square inch of the area. I mean, you're running into patrols, you're running into guard posts and things like that. Like that's
Right.
more how military units operate. They
Yep.
don't
They're in
just
the important areas. They're not everywhere because they don't need to be everywhere. They're in the areas that they need to fortify, like you said. They're guard posts, potential, strategic advantage points,
right.
forts or any place that they're holed up at. It makes sense. But I mean, that's one thing that the open world games, in my opinion, have always had to kind of dance the line on is if you put too much stuff, even in an open world game, it's going to feel way too crowded. If you're constantly having to, fight for your life. But that being said, there are open world survival games. So I mean, but those are kind of in a separate category. But at the flip side, if you put too little stuff, it's going to feel like a giant empty sandbox. Yes, there's tons of stuff to see, but if there's nothing to do,
Yeah.
yeah, oh cool, I get to explore this huge, mountain range, but there's nothing here.
Yeah, and I think that's where Halo Infinite struggles. Is it has it's a very good map. It allows a lot of good exploration, terrain control, vantage points, especially for a shooter type game.
Oh yeah.
But it doesn't have enough to do in the world or with the world to make it like really that level of immersive. I've enjoyed it,
Oh,
but
absolutely.
it needs more. If I think about like games that really strike a good balance of all that, I have to give it up to Fallout 4.
Mhm.
Like Fallout 4 is just an amazing game in my opinion. It's so much
Absolutely.
fun. And it's perfectly strikes that balance of stuff to do, the ability to traverse without necessarily getting your ass kicked all the time,
Yeah.
and like exploration and the ability to build. One of my favorite things to do in Fallout 4 was base building.
Oh yeah, same
Like
here. I spent more time doing that than I did like going out fighting stuff.
oh yeah. Well, except for when you had to like gather resources in order to build them. But I mean,
Exactly.
I had unlocked every single like settlement. I had built them up and fortified them.
Yep.
You know, I had armed all of my. You know, I had sentry turrets and guard posts and civilians walking around with rocket launchers and laser cannons and
Like you
like
do.
there was nothing that was going to break into these settlements while I was gone. I mean, I would build concrete walls
Yep.
all the way
Yep.
around and like gates and like yeah, it was impossible for anything to get in there. Now stuff would still get attacked
Right.
constantly, but you know, usually by the time I got there, I'd show up and there was just like a mountain of corpses outside, and my civilians are just kind of walking around.
Yep.
So,
I know that
but
feeling.
yeah, segueing real quick back to Halo Infinite though, if you're playing and you've unlocked a few things in the game, one of the things that I suggest you do for fun is get to the I believe it's called the Razorback. It is the warthog that is it has no turret on it. It's just it holds like 6 Marines.
Yep.
Well, sorry, it holds 5 people. It's a driver and then two in the four in the back and then one in the passenger seat.
Hmm.
Um, get one of those,
All right.
then give all of your Marines a sniper rifle
Okay.
and then just drive around because nothing will survive, mind you, and you will just hear this constant barrage sniper rifle fire going just doosh, 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 all the time. It is hilariously fun.
Nice.
I highly advise doing it. It is a grand time. Like nothing lives more than a few seconds.
Very nice. Very nice. I could see that being fun. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but I mean, kind of segueing from that. I mean, we talked about like there's open world survival games. I mean, we've even got. I completely lost my train of. Surprise, surprise. There's all kinds of different open world games. Exactly. It just kind of fluttered away. Um,
Yep.
and it's. I'm while I do like open world games, I'm worried kind of like, do you remember, 10 years ago, where everything was a zombie game, or had a zombie
Mm.
mode, or a zombie unlock, or was just a flat out zombie game? You remember when we just kind of got flooded with that?
Yep.
And even before that, remember there's Guitar Hero and Rock Band and all the spin offs of each one of those. And the market got flooded and people completely lost interest because there were just way too many of them. While open world games are good, we're starting to see more and more of them. And I'm worried that if it becomes the norm of games to be open world, or at least most games to be open world, as long as it's done well, I don't think it's going to be a bad thing. But part of me is worried that if the majority of things are open world, game companies are going to have to really push themselves to make it, to make, open world game A unique from open world game B. I mean,
Right.
even like Grand Theft Auto and Red Dead Redemption, both games from the same studio. Obviously, if you've kept up on the news, one of those did a lot better than the other, and they were two. While there was like crime in a way was a theme to both of them. Red Dead was a completely different kind of game. It was open world. You were playing as kind of an outlaw in the old west, but you being an outlaw is kind of where it stopped. You weren't going out of your way to do crime like you do in GTA, but you still had that option because again, it does give you that option. But it was a completely different kind of game. And whether it's from Rockstar not giving that game the support that it deserved, or whether it's just a lack of sales compared to what GTA 5 is still pulling in, who knows?
Right.
I mean, that I don't know off the top of my head, but I don't want to see games that could potentially be phenomenal kind of getting brushed to the side because, oh well, that's just like this other game, you know?
Right. Well, I mean, Game Rant themselves. I'm actually looking at a list of their top open world games, and
Okay.
they've actually rated Red Dead Redemption 2 as their number one on their list
Yeah.
of open world games. So
It's a good
it's still
game.
it's still definitely got a market
Oh yeah.
a market interest and things like that. And I will say this: if you're paying attention and you know history, the original Red Dead Redemption had a zombie mode.
Yes, it did.
Uh,
I
you know,
trust me, I remember that.
but it was a heck of a lot of fun
Yes. Yes. Back
because
when
you're
back
literally
when
like
zombie
riding
modes were
around.
fun.
Yes, you were literally riding around in your horse while hordes of zombies are like chasing you, and you're like trying to shoot over your shoulder to survive. Uh,
Right?
so I mean, it was a good one. But I mean, open world games can really, as we've talked about here, open world games can really cover every type of setting and
Yeah.
genre.
Oh, absolutely.
Fantasy, sci-fi, cyberpunk. Um,
Aha! I
New
should have
World,
I should
Old
have worn this
World.
shirt in our cyberpunk episode.
Really should have. The Old West, Spider-Man is an open
Yeah,
world
I
game.
mean, yeah, a superhero, a good rip Superman 64, a good superhero game that is also a phenomenal open world game.
Right.
I mean, the first open world Spider-Man was really good. Well, at least the most recent Spider-Man game that was open, Miles Morales, was admittedly pretty short, but was also good. But that was mostly because it was more of the same.
Yeah.
I mean, if you have something that's as good as Marvel Spider-Man, and it's just the same thing but with a different main character who also happens to be Spider-Man, you knew what you were getting out of it. So I
Right.
am excited about the sequel. Um, I'm hoping that it has a little bit more length and body to it than what the Miles Morales one did. That was really my only negative thing I could say about that one is it was really short. By the time I got to the ending, I didn't even realize it was at the ending because it came so quick. And I'm like, all right, I'll do this next kind of boss fight and see where the game takes me. And as I swing into it, it stops me and says you were nearing something along the lines of you were nearing the end. This will be the final fight. Please complete any side missions you have. And I'm like that. And
Right.
I was trying to get all the collectibles. I was trying to get all the side stuff. And seeing that message honestly killed my drive to do any of the side stuff.
Yeah.
I went, I beat the boss, finished the story, I went, cool, that was fun.
And I will say this: one of the things about open world games that I think is the most one of the if you're going to make an open world game that has like an actual game story element to it, one of the things I think you absolutely have to do is allow for continuation. Once you have finished the story, you have to be
Yes.
able to continue on and proceed with that story. So, new Fallout New Vegas, one of an awesome game, amazing game. I think if I remember correctly, you didn't really get to play it because for some reason it kept crashing on your computer every time you
Well,
opened it.
it was I think I put it on PS3 and like literally I would make my character and the second I stepped out of the building that you start New Vegas in, like the doctor's office or whatever it was, the game would lock up, the game would crash, or I could walk out but NPCs wouldn't appear and I tried doing a fresh install and I just kept running into the same thing and I'm like, "You know what? No." Admittedly I haven't played anything beyond the character creation of New Vegas
Yeah.
despite whatever. I have it on my PC now. I've never played it though. I have it because I bought the that Fallout Ultimate Edition, which came with literally every Fallout game, and it came in a Fat Boy nuke or
Right.
Fat
Oh
Man,
yeah.
Fat Man nuke, Fat Boy, whatever. It came in a mini nuke. I still
Yeah.
have that sitting over there.
Yeah, I mean, and that's but that was one of those games where it's like once you finish the story, like at the very last thing, it's like you finish the playthrough, and then the credits roll, and then like you go back into the game, and it's your save right before you go into the final area.
Right.
So it's like you can never actually progress the story, like, or see how the universe would react after you have
Right.
made your final decision. So you're just kind of like, well,
Now what?
poopy.
Yeah.
I guess I could keep replaying that final fight again, but
Well, I mean, admittedly, with some open world games, I mean, you have if the main character dies, you can't really continue their story beyond that. I mean, I don't know if that's how New Vegas ends. I don't want to spoil. even though I'm pretty sure we're well past the statute of spoilers. But there are
Right.
some open world games where like it's the ending of your character. You can't continue with them. So I've noticed that a lot of them do that very similar thing where it saves it right before the final fight. So you have the option to turn around, do, or find something else to do, or pick up any of the side stuff you didn't get to. Which I mean, is yeah, I'll agree with you, is a little bit of a cop out because you don't get to see the continuation of that world, but at least it still gives you an option to experience it so that you know that is the definitive point where I can't turn back. So you can go and take care of whatever you need to or whatever you want to before you do, you reach the point of no return, the event horizon, if you will.
Yep. Yeah, and for those of you interested, all of the Bethesda collection Fallout games are available on PC Game Pass and PC and Xbox Game Pass. So,
Yep. So you got a chance to
so
play some really good open. Well, Fallout 3 and beyond are all like full 3D open world. The first couple Fallouts, while they are open world ish, are what do they call it? Isometric? No,
yeah, so
where
yeah,
it's
it's
like that
kind of like the
three quarters view.
yeah, yeah,
I mean, they're
and
not they're not
they're
bad, but you can definitely tell they're quite a bit different than everything past Fallout 3.
right. Well, I mean, it was different development studio. If I remember correctly, the original development studio was actually Obsidian Games.
Yeah, I think so.
Then sold, which then Bethesda purchased the rights for the Fallout games, and then they started making the games. And then they contracted Obsidian to make Fallout New Vegas,
Yep.
which is lauded as one of the best games in the newer series.
Yep.
And then now both Obsidian and Bethesda are owned by Microsoft. So
Yep.
it's like it's all of that IP is back under
Yep.
it's under one wing now.
Yep.
I'm really hopeful. And Obsidian actually recently did what was it, Outer Worlds?
Yeah.
It was a
Wait.
yeah.
Obsidian did that.
Which was basically called like New Vegas in space.
Effectively, yeah. It was Fallout Space,
Yes,
but I liked it. I liked it a lot.
So anyway, so I think with that we're going to go ahead and wrap up. We're right around at our time, so we don't want to keep you too much longer. We thank you for tuning in, but yeah, so open world games really have that. They're here, and they definitely have a lot of appeal to them. They have a lot of replay value. They have a lot of staying value. Like you don't even have to necessarily replay the game. Like you can just keep playing them because it's open world. There really is. It's not much of an ending. I mean, there is, but you know what I mean. So,
I mean, there's even a lot more open world games out there than what we even talked about tonight. I mean, we could do a whole series on just open world games. But yeah, like Ian said, they're not going anywhere anytime soon. You know, with games like Sonic Frontiers out, you're seeing you're seeing existing IPs that are entering into that new territory. So it's going to be interesting to see how open world games progress because again, they're going to have to do something to make themselves unique from all the other open world out there. So it's going to be exciting to see what they do to games that already give you a ton of choice, how they can make themselves.
Yep, exactly. All right. Well, we will go ahead and wrap up for now. Thank you again for joining us. As always, we appreciate you tuning in. And a big thank you to Anchor.fm, who powered by Spotify, which is where we are hosted.
Yep.
You can catch us on social media. Facebook.com/non-sequitur-nerds, Twitter @non-sequitur-nerd, YouTube.com/non-sequitur-nerds, and Twitch.tv/non-sequitur-nerds. Yeah, I think that'll go ahead and do it for us. Thank you. We will catch you next time. So, yeah, as always, for the Non Sequitur Nerds, I'm Ian.
And I'm Tim. Night, everybody.